welcome in. This is Chiefs Chase. My name is Mike Bassano, and thank you so much for joining me here on the Midweek Blitz.
Winston for the Browns goes over the middle. It's pulled away. Is it? Yes! Worthy 15, 10, downfield block, touchdown! Jameis Winston, the ball's out. It'll be a sack. Winston trying to get away. He will not. Tershawn Wharton firing for the end zone. The pass is going to be intercepted on the far side. Trent McDuffie gets his first interception. Pass is going to be intercepted. Jaden Hicks. And they go to 13-1.
The Midweek Blitz is where we get you ready for everything Chiefs throughout the entire week. We cover every storyline, and we get you ready for the upcoming game as the Chiefs are playing this Saturday at home, a noon kickoff in Kansas City against the Houston Texans, and there are infinite storylines to discuss, most of them surrounding the ankle of Patrick Mahomes. We'll start the show with that. However, there is one player that is emerging and looking like the future of the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll tell you who that is coming up about midway through the show, because what we have to start with here, and I think what's very important to start with, is Patrick Mahomes, his ankle. The number one story of the week right now, as of today, it looks like he will likely play. Right? They said he might play, then he said probably going to play, and then Mahomes had this to say.
I want to be able to move. I want to be able to get out of the way. I mean, this is a good pass rush, a good defense. They're fly around. You don't want to go out there and put yourself in harm's way. I mean, obviously it's football. You're going to take hits, but you want to be able to protect yourself. So that'll be where I'm at, and I don't want to limit the game plan. I think that's another thing for me is I want to be able to still be able to move around the pockets, so we're not just sitting in one spot the whole entire game and letting their D-line really get after it. So it's about me finding that balance and seeing where I'm at. And like I said, I won't know until kind of close to the end of this.
That's Patrick Mahomes. Thank you to Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City for that audio and that video. Now, here's the question. I know the big thing is, will Mahomes play, all that, but should Patrick Mahomes play? We'll get to that here in just a moment, but first, I want to cover the narrative that I see out there on the internet of people thinking that Patrick Mahomes is faking his ankle injury. Imagine being so dense and so stupid that you watch that play. You watch Patrick Mahomes get bent in half sideways like a lawn chair from the knees, and then you go, you know what? I think he's faking it. I think he's doing it for dramatic effect. Imagine being that stupid and that absolutely disconnected from reality that you hate Patrick Mahomes so much that you watch him get blatantly injured right in front of your face and then go, yeah, I think he's faking it. That's how out of their minds the Patrick Mahomes haters have become. They want to find every possible reason to hate Patrick Mahomes because they know deep down that they can't stand the dominance. They can't stand how amazing Patrick Mahomes has been his entire career. So instead of stepping back and asking yourself, what can I do to make my life better? You want to attack Patrick Mahomes, who's been nothing but a beacon for the NFL and a great citizen while being the best cornerback in NFL history. I'm so sorry that you have a problem accepting that, so you try to cut down Patrick Mahomes and say he's faking an injury that's been bothering him since 2022. By the way, on a bum ankle, Patrick Mahomes has won back-to-back Super Bowls, and he is the number one team, quarterback of the number one team in the NFL at 13-1. Nobody else at that mark anymore. 13-1 Chiefs. Goodbye, Detroit Lions. The Chiefs are the only one-loss team in the NFL, and that's because of Patrick Mahomes. And the idea that he is faking his ankle injury only comes from the darkest, dumbest parts of the internet that, frankly, no one should ever entertain. It's people that usually have a dog or a child as their profile picture, or maybe a truck, and then they want to come in and say, this guy's faking an injury, after they watched him get bent sideways from his knees on the ground, hit by not one, not two, but three Cleveland Browns at one time. That is a pathetic coping mechanism, and frankly, those people shouldn't be allowed to have opinions on anything. Now on to whether or not Patrick Mahomes should play. This is an interesting conversation because my answer to that is no. I don't think Patrick Mahomes should play against the Texans. it's only setting him up for failure. The only thing you're doing by letting Patrick Mahomes play against the Texans is setting him up to hurt his ankle further. And then you're going to have him play another game on Christmas 4 days later. 2 games in 4 days on that ankle feels irresponsible. And frankly, behind this offensive line and with the play calling we've seen lately from the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't feel comfortable watching Patrick Mahomes play on Saturday against the Texans. I want to see Carson Wentz out there. Maybe give your O-line a week to figure it the hell out so they can stop getting Mahomes killed. Starting Patrick Mahomes this week, I don't care how bad he wants to play. I don't. I think it would be irresponsible. Carson Wentz should be the starter this week. Go ahead. If you lose to the Texans, who cares? The number one priority has to be getting King Mahomes healthy for the playoffs because that's when you really need him. And you can even lose to the Texans and maintain the number 1 seed in the NFL. And by the way, Carson Wentz isn't a bad quarterback. He could step in and beat the Texans. So this idea of throwing Mahomes out there while his ankle's bothering him, I wouldn't chance it. Not in a million years. He's the franchise. He's Patrick Mahomes. You have to do everything you can to keep your franchise player, the face of the NFL, healthy for the playoffs. I think putting him out there for 2 games in 4 days would be a really poor choice by the Kansas City Chiefs, and it would bother me deeply. Now, maybe Mahomes comes out, he lights it up, and his ankle's fine. There's also a world where that exists, but that's not a world that I want to chance. You know what I mean? There's a very good probability that Patrick Mahomes could go out there and play really well, and his ankle doesn't bother him at all. But that's not a chance that I would be willing to take. And if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs and looking around their team and the fact that Mahomes has been carrying their offense with little to no help all season, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that either. So you can't tell me, you can't sell to me that Patrick Mahomes should play on Saturday against the Texans. You have to rest that ankle and not allow it to get worse. You have 3 games left in the regular season. You have a 2-game lead on the number 1 seed. There's no reason to throw Patrick Mahomes out there and play 2 games in 4 days on that ankle. It feels irresponsible. I wouldn't do it. Let Carson Wentz have a shot and let him maybe get a job as a starter somewhere else next year. Let this be his time to put something on tape and show people how good he can be. What's wrong with that? Maybe he comes out and lights it up against the Houston Texans, and now Carson Wentz can get a job somewhere else next year as a starter. It could be a win-win for everybody as opposed to throwing Patrick Mahomes out there with a bum ankle, which feels like a net loss. Just across the board. Even if he gets through it healthily, you can't tell me that ankle isn't going to be aggravated. So I say stay on the bench until Christmas. Come back for Christmas Day. Go be a hero. Dominate against the Steelers. Solidify yourselves as the number 1 seed in the AFC. And then you can go ahead and go into treatment, right off into the sunset. And you only have 1 game left after that, and you can rest the ankle even more. But I'm just saying, putting him out there against the Texans, it feels like such a bad idea. It seems like an irresponsible idea. I mean, this is a guy that has the entire hopes and dreams of the franchise sitting on his shoulders. And we're talking about a game in mid-December while you have a 2-game lead up in the AFC for the 1 seed, and you're going to put him out there? I can't see a world where that's even halfway logical. Yet it feels like they're saying the probability is that Patrick Mahomes is going to play. I don't understand that. I see that as a one-way ticket to a really bad situation. And maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm being soft, but I'm trying to keep the big picture in mind here. The goal isn't to beat the Texans in the middle of December. The goal is to three-peat, and you have to do that with a healthy Patrick Mahomes. So keep Mahomes on the sideline on Saturday. Let him come back for Christmas. Give him a few more days to let that ankle rest just a little bit, because the fact is, it's not worth it. It's just not. So play Carson Wentz on Saturday. Now, also with and I think I've discussed this, with the offensive line and the predictable play calling. I mean, a 5-year-old could predict those plays against the Cleveland Browns. So you have predictable play calling and an offensive line that can't create a clean pocket. Those two things are going to put a hobbled quarterback out there. It just seems asinine to me. It seems like the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the most wrong person in the world, but it seems really stupid. Got to protect the king. Now, also on this, we'll get to the back priority, and we'll hear from Matt Nagy and from Andy Reid. But first, the Josh Allen glazing has gotten completely out of control. Josh Allen and the Bills beat the Lions, and now suddenly Josh Allen's the greatest quarterback who's ever existed. What a pathetic narrative. Josh Allen has the best offensive line in football. That's why he's playing so well. He hasn't taken a sack in a month. If you put Patrick Mahomes on that Bills offense, Patrick Mahomes has 50 touchdowns by now. So this isn't about Josh Allen suddenly becoming this amazing quarterback that he's never been before. It's about having a front line that can finally protect him, and Patrick Mahomes having a front line that can't create a clean pocket to save their lives. So that's the big difference this year between Mahomes and Allen. It's not about talent. It's not about the ability to read defenses. It's not about football from the quarterback position. It's about the offensive line. Period. Point blank. What makes Josh Allen have a better year than Patrick Mahomes in 2024? An offensive line. Josh Allen hasn't been sacked in a month. I think Patrick Mahomes got sacked 5 seconds ago. That's how ridiculous this Chiefs offensive line has been this year and how good the Bills offensive line has been this year. So even though people want to point at stats and say that suddenly, and here's another thing. All the national media, these clowns on television, these ratings-chasing, flip-flopping frontrunners on TV, they should all be fired for how quickly they want to flip and say, oh, I think Josh Allen's the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. They weren't saying that back in February, but they're saying it now because they're prisoners of the moment, and they don't look at the big picture that Josh Allen never gets sacked because his offensive line is the best in the league, and that Patrick Mahomes is running for his life every single play. That's the difference this year between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, because it certainly isn't talent and it certainly isn't playability. It's the ability of the Bills offensive line to crush everybody and create a very clean pocket and buy Josh Allen tons of time so he can shred the entire defense, and then versus the Chiefs offensive line, which has gone through 4 left tackles this year because Wanya Morris can't play, Kingsley can't play, and then DJ Humphries got injured. So now you have Joe Tooney on the outside, who usually plays guard, and while he's playing great at left tackle, now the Chiefs can't run the ball because their guard position just got weaker. So that's the issue with the Chiefs. Do not sit there and try to sell me that Josh Allen is better than Patrick Mahomes, because the fact is he's not. He's having a little moment in the sun right now that's created by his offensive line. While Patrick Mahomes is having a rough numbers year, he's still the best player on the Chiefs and playing out of his mind and putting on the Superman cape to get them to 13 wins, more than Josh Allen. But he's not putting up the numbers because he doesn't have the offensive line to protect him. That's the period, point blank, as to what's going on this season. That's the actual facts. It's not like suddenly Josh Allen woke up in 2024 and became a significantly better quarterback and Patrick Mahomes became worse. The only people that think that are the morons on television that don't actually watch the games. They just ratings chase and lie to you and flip-flop their opinions every single week because they want you to pay attention to what they have to say. They aren't focused on the truth, because the truth is it's everybody around them, not them. Right? Now, Josh Allen's a hell of a quarterback. No mistake. Absolutely a hell of a quarterback. But none of the throws he's making this year are any better than the throws Patrick Mahomes has made in previous years. And Patrick Mahomes has had better throws than Josh Allen this year, but people keep dropping them. DeAndre Hopkins a couple weeks ago, career highlight for Patrick Mahomes as far as evading, getting away from people, having himself be wrapped up at the lower body, and he throws a desperation throw, perfect strike right off the chest of DeAndre Hopkins. So part of the problem that Patrick Mahomes has, really the whole problem, is everyone around him's letting him down. From the coaching staff to his weapons to his offensive line. We're seeing everybody let him down. And the byproduct of that that's incredibly frustrating is that Patrick Mahomes now has a little bit of happy feet. Now, even when he gets a decent pocket, he's not confident enough to step up into the pocket because he's waiting to get his head taken off, because that's what he's been used to. It's like watching David Carr for the Texans back in the day. You just get planted over and over again, and eventually you can't trust your offensive line to protect you. And that's why we're seeing Mahomes make certain mistakes in moments where he's already been beaten around like a pinball the entire game. So until that gets fixed, I don't want to hear one word about Josh Allen being better than Patrick Mahomes. He just has a better offensive line. Speaking of that, let's hear from Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, because he talked about this exact issue.
Pat does a really good job of trying to really stay on time, and then in that pocket move his feet when he can, and it's not always going to be perfect, but there's times when you're going to have pressure in your face. There's times when there's going to be a clean pocket. When you have a clean pocket, you want to make sure that you're accurate and that you're taking advantage of that. But if there's not a clean pocket, it's not that easy all the time to make that throw. And so we got to make sure on our end as coaches that what are we doing to make sure that there is a clean pocket, because when he has a clean pocket, he can be deadly.
Thank you to Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City for that video. And he's right. If Mahomes gets a clean pocket, he's an absolute killer. But he hasn't gotten a clean pocket all year. He's consistently getting beaten around, having to buy time to throw a 5-yard pass because his offensive line can't stop anybody. And the fact that there isn't a greater emphasis on that in the Chiefs organization to protect your $500 million quarterback, that's a worry. They spent 2 second-round picks in back-to-back years on left tackles, Wanya Morris and then Kingsley out of BYU, which means you got to put a little bit of on Andy, right? Put a little bit of it on Andy. He loves his BYU boys, and it's become very clear to everybody that those guys can't stop anybody. So this has to be a little bit on Andy Reid. So Kingsley, disaster pick. Wanya Morris, disaster pick. That's 2 second-round picks in back-to-back years where Vet Veach and Andy Reid have missed. And now the result of it is you have a $500 million quarterback that's running for his life, and now he has happy feet and he's lost his confidence in the pocket because you didn't do your job. That's what happened. I can sugarcoat it for you, but if maybe DJ Humphries comes back and that's the solidifying piece. That's the number one hope here, is that DJ Humphries comes back from injury, goes to left tackle, so Joe Thuney can move back to left guard, and now you have a passable offensive line in Kansas City, because that's what the Chiefs are missing. They don't need a great offensive line. They need a passable offensive line. So the hope is DJ Humphries comes back at left tackle before the playoffs start. You can move Joe Thuney back to left guard. And now you have an offensive line that at least says, hey, Patrick, we'll give you 3 seconds. Because that's all it needs right now. Patrick Mahomes, when he takes longer than 2.5 seconds, he can't throw the football. When he throws it in less than 2.5 seconds, Patrick Mahomes is outstanding. So with those two things looking across from each other, how could I possibly sit here and say, well, Patrick Mahomes is having an off year? He's not. He's not being protected, so he can't step up and make the long throws and get the chunk plays that you need to have massive stats in the NFL. Without that ability, the Chiefs are in dire straits on offense. Now, they've created a methodical game plan where they move the ball down the field in short chunks. Right? We talked about it last week. They have 33, well, that was the last week's stats, where they had 33 scoring drives of over 10 plus plays or more, which is 8 more than any other team in the NFL. After last week, I'm not entirely sure what the stat is, but obviously no one closed that 8 drive gap over 1 week. So what we're looking at is a team that's had to adjust to having an offensive line that's porous. Porous. And until that gets fixed, there's a big problem in Kansas City. I still think the Chiefs three-peat because I believe DJ Humphries comes back, goes to left tackle, but it shouldn't be this hard. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be so difficult to find somebody that can play left tackle in the NFL at a decent level, especially when you spent so much time and money on your quarterback. And what should make everybody more upset about this, what should make everybody increasingly ticked off about this situation, is that Patrick Mahomes took a pay cut. He is far from the highest paid quarterback in the NFL because he wants to have players around him. He wants to win championships. He wants to do it like Tom Brady did it in New England. Take less money so you can build a team around him. And you didn't get him a left tackle worth his salt? How do you screw that up, man? That can't happen. And yeah, you can keep Joe Thuney out there, but now you're sacrificing the run game on the inside. So DJ Humphries has to get healthy. That is the key to the Chiefs three-peating, is to have a left tackle who's healthy, who can play football. That's it. And I don't care where you find him. I don't care if you go get Willie Roaf. He's in his 50s. He's got 1 game left in him. Go get him. Go get somebody. Because this is embarrassing for the Chiefs organization to have a quarterback take a pay cut and then you can't protect him. That's embarrassing. I'm frustrated about it today, man. I'm just telling you, I'm frustrated. I can't help it. Because this season, it's been a crazy season for Patrick Mahomes. He looks like Jon Snow out there, by himself up against the whole army running at him because nobody's protecting him. Jon Snow Mahomes has to put the team on his back because there's nobody else willing to help? That's a frustration. And it should be a frustration for everybody. And what's more upsetting is you have all these casuals who don't even watch the games who are like, well, Patrick Mahomes is having an off season. He's really fallen off. No, he hasn't. You can't play quarterback when you get 2.5 seconds tops to throw the ball every single play. Josh Allen hasn't been sacked in a month. Patrick Mahomes runs for his life every single play. So that's the difference between those two quarterbacks this year. And don't let any of those clowns on national television tell you any differently, because all they're doing is reading numbers and regurgitating the things that you want to hear to chase ratings. They aren't telling you the truth. I guarantee that. They need help across the board. And that's where I want to revisit Eric Bieniemy. We talked about it in the postgame show on Sunday. Eric Bieniemy at least holds guys accountable. Right? What I know for Eric Bieniemy is, yes, he has some problems with some of the relationships with people on the Chiefs. That's a fact. But what I also know about Eric Bieniemy is he gets results. People might not like him, but he holds them accountable. People might be like, oh, he brings a toxic level. I don't care. Your playing on the offensive line is so pathetic at this point that I'm willing to bring back Eric Bieniemy and pay him everything that Clark Hunt has in order to stop the absolute disaster that we're watching in Kansas City. Because I'm so sick and tired of watching Patrick Mahomes get beaten around. I'm so sick and tired of watching Patrick Mahomes get beaten around every week because he doesn't deserve it. He's better than that. Best quarterback of all time. Takes a pay cut so you can put great players around him because he wants to win Super Bowls and you can't protect him. That's embarrassing. It's flat out embarrassing. And maybe bring in Eric Bieniemy, because at least he'll hold somebody accountable. So when you miss a block in practice, people aren't coming up to you telling you how good you are. You have Eric Bieniemy telling you to play better. That's the problem, is they don't seem to have anyone holding these guys on the offensive line accountable because they somehow get worse every single week. How is that possible? Yeah, Joe Thuney played all right at left tackle, but Mahomes was still running for his life. There was pressure coming up the middle by the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, they neutralized Myles Garrett, but there's other guys that were getting through consistently for the Browns. And then after the game, they're like, well, that was a really good pass rush. That was a really good pass rush. The Browns have a really good pass. They have Myles Garrett, who's a great pass rusher, but we're going to sit here and pretend that the Browns played a great game. They didn't. The Browns played a bad game. Like when the Chiefs played the Panthers, I chalk that up to the Panthers playing out of their mind football. Like that's the difference here. When the Chiefs beat the Panthers, people were like, oh, you barely beat the Panthers. Look at their record. Watch the game. The Panthers played a great football game. They took the Chiefs to the brink, and they played out of their minds. Bryce Young has turned into a totally different quarterback in the second half of the season, and the Chiefs were one of the first teams to see that. So the Panthers played a phenomenal football game. The Browns played a bad football game. The Chiefs just played down to them. They should have won that game 35-7 at least. 5 takeaways they could have scored on, and the Chiefs didn't get it done. They scored 14 points off that 5 takeaways. That's not good enough. I don't think you need to be a football expert to know that that's just not good enough. So that's what frustrates me about this team. I think it frustrates a lot of people. Now, the NFL has one major problem with Kansas City. We're going to move on from this because I'm honestly, I'm tired of being frustrated. So we're going to move on from this into the one player that's emerging and looks like the future of the Chiefs. Teased it at the beginning. We'll get to it right now. Also, the Chiefs have the NFL has one major problem with Kansas City. We'll tell you what that is coming up here in just a bit. But first, the future of the Kansas City Chiefs, Leo Chenal.
And they're going to run the ball, and running hard, it's Nick Chubb. And Chubb now fumbles the ball at the end of the run. But the Chiefs are saying they've got the football. Another turnover.
Leo Chenal's always been a beast physically, but now he's developing mentally, and he's really coming along in his game, man. He is all over the field all the time, and frankly, he's not getting enough snaps. He's only playing 19% of the snaps against the Cleveland Browns. But he's still coming through and making great plays. And that's what you have to love about Leo Chenal. He's an absolute beast. He made that punch out against Nick Chubb last week against the Browns, and that was just beautiful. He's showing the ability to play sideline to sideline, and he's showing the ability to develop mentally in this game. The more that happens for Leo Chenal, the better he becomes. He is going to take over as the captain of this defense. And I think he's the future. of middle linebacker in Kansas City because right now he's playing out of position. I think Leo Chenal was brought in to eventually replace Nick Bolton, and Nick Bolton's having such a good season this year that it's hard to envision him back in Kansas City next year. And I know that sucks. It does. But he's going to cost a lot of money. And the Chiefs have a lot of guys to play, and they have Leo Chenal playing out of position who can step into the middle linebacker position, and they feel really good about him. I feel really good about Leo Chenal. So as long as that's happening, as long as we're seeing a strong Leo Chenal in this team, there's no reason to worry about anything else, right? Put him in the middle linebacker position. Let Nick Bolton go ahead and move on. He'll be a L'Jarius Sneed. He'll go get a bunch of money somewhere, and that's awesome. The only thing that I want is to make sure that we send Nick Bolton off into the sunset to another team for a lot of money with a three-peat. Because Nick Bolton's been such a massive part of the success of Kansas City and a massive part of the success of Steve Spagnuolo's defense that the number one thing I think he deserves is to leave to Kansas City Chiefs a champion. So let's have that happen. And then Leo Chenal, to me, is the obvious middle linebacker to step in after Nick Bolton leaves. He's the future of Kansas City. And he's a good future guy, too, man. He's awesome. And I think after that blocked kick, everybody felt like Leo Chenal started coming into his own. The confidence of blocking that kick against the Denver Broncos was everything. It happened at home. Everybody was talking to him about it. He went up to Travis Kelce and got his jersey after. All that stuff is so awesome for Leo Chenal, and I love seeing him blossom into the player that I think everybody in Kansas City, including and especially the coaching staff in the front office, knew that Leo Chenal could be. Now, the Chiefs' biggest concern heading into the final stretch, we'll touch on that here coming up in just a few minutes. But first, the NFL has one major problem with Kansas City. The NFL has a huge problem with the Kansas City Chiefs. And that problem is they're peanut butter and jealous. They're sad that the Kansas City Chiefs are now the only one-loss team in the entire NFL. They're sad that the Kansas City Chiefs are the only 13-win team in the entire NFL. Now the Chiefs are alone atop that mountain, and all these other fan bases can do to cope is create a delusional world where the Chiefs should really only have 5 wins. Do you hear these people, these clowns? Well, if you go back and look at some of these calls and some of these close games, you know what? It's really pathetic that you guys do that. It is. It's pathetic that people go out and try to find ways to discount the Kansas City Chiefs, who have the best record in the NFL. And they'll point back to anything. You know how many times a day I hear from people bringing up the Atlanta Falcons game from week 3? It's almost Christmas, and you're out here commenting about how the Chiefs might have gotten away with a little pass interference on an uncatchable ball by Kirk Cousins back in September? How hard do you have to cope? How much do you hate the Kansas City Chiefs' dominance that you have to create a delusional world where they should only have a few wins and really the refs gave them all those other wins? It's so sad to listen to, but it's also hilarious. You're pointing back to games from September? That shows just how hard it is for people to cope with the absolute dominance of the dynasty of Kansas City. That's how hard it is for people to cope with the fact that only one quarterback drafted since 2013 has won a Super Bowl in the NFL. And that man is Patrick Mahomes II. Make sure you don't drop his crown before you put it on, because King Mahomes owns the NFL. The Chiefs own the NFL. Back-to-back champions, 13-1. The best record in the entire league, and there isn't a thing you can do about it. And that's what makes people so angry. That's why they have to come out and have all these issues and say, no, the Chiefs are frauds. They've been helped by the referees. It's all rigged. It's like the WWE. They want Taylor Swift. They want the Swifties to care about football, so they're making the Chiefs good. Imagine being so upset that you create that delusional narrative in your head. Some of y'all need therapy. I'm just saying. I do. I get that. But you need therapy too. You need to go to therapy. You need to be in therapy too. Because I'm telling you, this kind of coping mechanism from these fan bases to try to cut down the 13-1 Chiefs, the best record in the NFL, Also, back-to-back champions. What an unbelievable accomplishment for a football team that you know is everybody's Super Bowl because they're back-to-back champions and they have Taylor Swift in the skybox. Everyone hates the Chiefs for that. So it hurts them so deeply that the Chiefs are 13-1 and have the best record in the league. It sticks in their heart like a dagger to the point where they have to create a false narrative that the refs got them there. They want to point back to a Falcons game from week 3 where there was an uncatchable ball thrown by Kirk Cousins, who's been benched, by the way, that they thought might be a pass interference call. They're still bringing it up. That was September. It's almost Christmas. That's how hard it is for opposing fan bases to deal with the dominance of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's how hard it is for opposing fan bases to accept that they just aren't at that level. Because if you were, you would be 13-1. But you're not, because only one team in the NFL is 13-1, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. Anything else on this? Oh, yeah, by the way, for all the times that people bring up the Chiefs winning close games, if the Chiefs had stopped the Bills on 4th and 2 on Josh Allen's best run of his career, if the Chiefs had stopped the Bills on that 4th and 2, they would have driven the ball down, kicked a field goal to win, and they'd be sitting at 14-0. So they are one play away from being 14-0. So you could sit there and point out all these, well, they're one play away from losing this game or that game. They're one play away from being 14-0. So make sure you don't forget that while you're trying so hard to cope with your delusional sense of how the Chiefs have winning. With your delusional sense of how the Chiefs have been winning 13 games by getting lucky or getting help from the referees. Make sure you remember that they were one play away from 14-0 too. If you actually watch the games, you would know that. But my guess is a lot of you don't. You just watch all the national narratives and people who have suddenly flip-flopped to tell you that, well, I think Josh Allen's the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. Really, when did you decide that? 5 days ago when you realized that the Bills fans were the ones that were going to be watching your show and you wanted to have high ratings? Is that when you decided it? Clowns. I got bones to pick about these guys. I do. I just got bones to pick, man. Bones to pick. We got a few things to get to here, but I want to finish this up real quick. Because the Chiefs, again, the Chiefs were one 4th and 2 stop against the Bills away from being 14-0. And people still want to bring up a game from September against the Falcons where Kirk Cousins threw a bad ball and they thought it might have been pass interference. That's how hard they're trying to discount the Chiefs because it hurts them so deeply that the Chiefs are 13-1 and have the best record in the NFL while also being back-to-back champions and being every other team's Super Bowl. They still can't handle it. Cry about it. Now, the Chiefs' biggest concern heading into the final stretch, we're getting to that now, also a prediction coming up here in just a few minutes, but the biggest concern is offensive line, right? We've discussed that ad nauseum in this show. Absolutely, without question, the offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs is the biggest concern heading into the final stretch of the season. However, I think play calling's right behind it. Matt Nagy has not been good, and Andy Reid, I know he's part of the play calling, he hasn't been good either. They've been calling predictable plays. Now, it's hard to fault them too much because they're 13-1. They've been very predictable on offense. So I think the hope for me and for every other Chiefs fan is that when the playoffs come, the playbook's going to explode because I have not seen more uninspired game plans in my entire life. But these uninspired game plans are winning. The Chiefs are 13-1 with the most uninspired game plans I've ever seen. So that makes me believe, and I think would make a lot of other Chiefs fans believe, that there's a chance that the Kansas City Chiefs, come playoff time, rip that playbook wide open and start crushing everybody. Because with the play calling I've been seeing from this team, it's hard to believe that this is a team that's been opening up their playbook against anyone. Because every play is predictable. Every play is exactly what you would expect it to be. And the little end around to Xavier Worthy is about as interesting as this playbook gets. And it tends to work a lot of the time because Xavier Worthy is a bad mother effer. Every time we see him, man, he scored again. We've been calling for Xavier Worthy to get the ball more, and it looks like that's happening now for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I love to see it because Xavier Worthy has so much upside. And with a lack of offensive line play in Kansas City, having a guy like Xavier Worthy who can catch a ball behind the line of scrimmage and then take it 25 yards for a touchdown, that's incredibly important because it helps neutralize the need for a clean pocket to throw the ball downfield. We'd much rather have the clean pocket, but right now we have Xavier Worthy. It's like, you want a clean pocket? We got Xavier Worthy at home. We got to go out for a clean pocket. We got to go get somebody for a clean pocket, but we got Xavier Worthy at home. And that's what he's doing. He's turning these small plays into big plays. Love to see it from Xavier Worthy. Love to see how he's developing as a player and becoming a more well-rounded player while also remaining explosive. Love to see it, and it's a very good sign for the future of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Leo Chenal on defense and Xavier Worthy on offense are really the future cornerstones for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I can't wait to see how much more they blossom throughout the rest of this year. Now, I think a lot of people are frustrated with the play calling because I think we're seeing a lot of players get wasted. I went on a tangent there with Xavier Worthy, but I'm bringing it back to the play calling. I just got excited about Xavier, man. He's playing really well. That's awesome. So let's bring it back to the offensive line and the play calling. I think a big reason people are frustrated is because it seems as if you're wasting guys like Travis Kelce, guys like DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, when's the last time you remember Travis Kelce getting a chance to catch a ball more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage? How much of that is play calling? How much of that is the offensive line? Matt Nagy this week pointed it to it being the offensive line and the fact that they can't create a really clean pocket. And when they do, Mahomes is great throwing downfield, but right now they can't. So that's what Nagy says. But Nagy's also part of the play calling. So how much of it is offensive line and how much of it is play calling? Either way, it has to get figured out because I think all of us want to see Travis Kelce get a chance to catch a ball further downfield than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. Most of his catches are within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage because that's all they have time to do. So the frustration with this team and the frustration with the entire year has been that. But the other side is you're 13-1. So it's really hard to get like super angry about it. The only thing that really gets me angry is the fact that Patrick Mahomes is running for his life. That you have the face of the league is on your team. He takes a pay cut so that you can build talent around him to win a Super Bowl, which is incredible. What are the other quarterbacks doing that in the NFL? There's not many. And you can't get an offensive line to protect him? That's the frustration, I think, for everybody, is that you have a quarterback who's giving you everything and you can't protect him. I mean, Mahomes has played hurt. He's played sick. He's pushed through injury after injury, and he's brought you 3 Super Bowls, 4 Super Bowl appearances, and now it's 13-1 and the number 1 team in the AFC. You got to protect him. He means a lot to the team. He means a lot to the city. He means a lot to the game of football. You have to protect him by any means necessary. Sign Willie Roaf. Donovan Smith played last year. He did fine. You need an offensive line that's fine. And Joe Tooney's on the left. Yeah, I don't love that because now look at the running game last week. Against the Cleveland Browns, the Chiefs could not run the ball. I think Kareem Hunt got, 3.5 yards per carry, and Isaiah Pacheco was like 2.5 yards per carry. It was a bad day running the ball. It's because Tooney wasn't on the inside. So that's not a real fix, in my opinion. I think it's a nice Band-Aid, but it's not a real fix. Got to get DJ Humphries back, and he's got to play well. That's really what it is. Or, I don't know, give Wanya Morris steroids because he looks like he's been eating cupcakes nonstop. He looks soft, doesn't he? Like, look at Wanya Morris. He looks soft. He looks like he's been eating cupcakes. Steroid up, Wanya. Don't get caught. Hey, the FCC doesn't control this show. I used to be on the air, as many of you know, for, 8 years. Covered the Chiefs for 3 years. But, yeah, that sucked because you had the FCC. No FCC on this show. Hey, Wanya, trend. It works. Just don't get caught. All right. Second round pick, man. You got to make it work. All right. I'm half kidding. Maybe 25% kidding. Yeah. All right. Prediction. My prediction is I don't think, first of all, this is a big prediction. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to play in this game. I think it's all smoke and mirrors, and in the end, Carson Wentz is going to play at home against the Houston Texans. I think he has a pretty dang good game. Not a great game, but a good game, and enough for the Chiefs to win 28-24 over the Houston Texans and ride off 14-1 going into the Christmas Day game, which is a huge game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's how I see this game playing out. They say Mahomes will likely play. I don't buy it. I think it's irresponsible to have him play on that ankle 4 days, twice in 4 days. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. So in the end, I expect Carson Wentz to start, and I expect the Chiefs to win 28-24.
Started in the league and been successful. He's got a great feel for this offense. Very smart. Big arm. I like the way he carries himself. I like everything about him. He should be starting in this league somewhere, So he's a heck of a player.
Riding off 14-1 into Christmas Day. This has been Chiefs Chase, the midweek blitz. It's been a lot of ranting. I'm frustrated when I see Mahomes get hurt, especially with a situation that we know has been a problem all year, and it's still yet to be fixed by Brett Veach, Andy Reid, and the rest of the Kansas City Chiefs coaching staff and front office. You have a quarterback taking a pay cut for you so you can put a good team around him, and you're getting him killed. That's not acceptable. And I think I'm not the only person in the world who's going to look at that and say that's not acceptable. So that's why there was a lot of ranting today, but I appreciate you guys so much for listening. You have no idea. I love doing this show. I'll do this show. If there are two of you who want to listen, I will do this show for the two of you. If there are more than that, that's awesome too. We accept everybody, even the fans that watch just to tell me how much they hate me. We love you too. So thank you so much for spending a little bit of your week with me, because it means everything to me. I love you guys. Have a freaking awesome holiday. Have an awesome week. I will see you after the game on the 21st, and then I won't do a midweek blitz leading up to Christmas, because it's 4 days. How many storylines could there be? Unless something crazy happens, right? If something crazy happens on the 21st, then we'll probably do a show. Otherwise, we're going to do a post game on the 21st, and then a post game on the 25th, and then we'll do a midweek blitz the following week. To get you ready for the Broncos game, the finale, and then it'll go back to just being normal. But holiday schedule is be here for postgame on the 21st. I'll be here for postgame on the 25th. Yeah, I'm going to be at my parents' house. Got a little setup. Going to make it work. Have a phenomenal rest of your week. Enjoy the game. And one more time, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for interacting. You guys mean the world to me. Have a good one.